Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a puzzle you deal with every single day, whether you know it or not. From your morning coffee to a new car, why do things cost what they do? Let's jump in and figure this out.
So, let's start with that coffee. Have you ever really stopped to think about it? Why that specific price? It can feel completely random, but believe me, there's a fascinating economic story happening right behind that price tag.
You see, a price isn't just a number someone dreams up. It's not magic at all. The best way to think about it is like a constant tug of war between two really powerful opposing forces.
And that, right there, is our explainer for today, the price puzzle. Our mission is to pull back the curtain and see exactly what those forces are, to look at both sides of that tug of war to understand how the price of, well, everything gets set.
So, first things first, let's grab one side of that rope. We're going to start with us, the buyers, the consumers, and the force we bring to the market. Let's meet demand.
And this is our game plan, right here, the demand curve. It looks kind of technical, but it shows a really simple, fundamental truth about how we behave. As the price of something goes down, we are willing to buy more of it. Simple as that. It's an inverse relationship.
But why? Why do we all act this way? Well, it really comes down to three big ideas. First, there's the substitution effect. If coffee gets cheaper, you might buy it instead of your usual, more expensive tea. Makes sense. Then you've got the income effect. When prices are lower, your money just goes further. You kind of feel richer, so you can afford to buy more. And finally, my personal favorite, diminishing marginal utility. Just think about pizza. That first slice, it's incredible. But the 10th slice? Not so much. You probably only buy that 10th slice if the price was way, way down.
Now, this is a really important point. When a product just goes on sale, when the price changes, we just move up or down along that demand curve. But what if something else changes? Like you get a raise or a new study comes out saying coffee is super healthy. That changes your fundamental desire for the product. And that doesn't just move a point on the line, it shifts the entire curve. It's a whole new ballgame for demand.
Okay, so that's our side of the tug of war. Let's drop that rope for a second and walk over to the other side. Let's meet the sellers and the force they bring to the market, supply.
Now, for sellers, the story is basically the opposite. Their playbook is the supply curve, and it shows that as the price of a good goes up, producers are willing to make and sell more of it. And why is that? Well, for them, the whole game is driven by one thing, cost. But wait, why does it cost more to make more? Two big reasons. First, you've got rising input cost. To make more coffee, a cafe needs more beans, more milk, more workers. They're all competing for these limited resources, and that drives up the price. And second, there's this idea of diminishing returns. Imagine a tiny little coffee shop. If you keep adding more and more baristas, eventually they're just going to be bumping into each other, getting in the way. It becomes less efficient, and each extra cup of coffee actually costs more to make.
And just like we saw with demand, we have to make the same distinction here. When the market price changes, sellers just move along their existing supply curve. But what if something fundamental changes? Say, someone invents a super efficient new espresso machine that cuts production time in half. That changes the basic cost of doing business, and that shifts the entire supply curve. Now, they can supply more coffee at every single price level.
All right, so we've got our two sides. We've got buyers pulling for lower prices, and we've got sellers who need higher prices to cover their costs. So where does this tug of war actually end? Let's find out. Let's find that balance point.
This is where the magic happens. When you put both of these curves on the same graph, you can literally see them clash. The buyers are pulling the price down, the sellers are yanking it up. And it's this very interaction, this tension, that creates a single, stable price that clears the market.
And that special balance point has a name, market equilibrium. You can think of it as the market's sweet spot. It's that one price where the amount of stuff buyers want to buy is exactly the same as the amount sellers want to sell. It's perfectly balanced.
And there it is, the answer to our puzzle. For this example, let's say the equilibrium price is $15. At that price, the market is happy. Every single person who wants to buy at $15 can find something to buy, and every seller who's willing to sell for $15 finds a buyer. The tug of war is over.
But what if the price isn't at that perfect point? Well, the market has this incredible, almost automatic way of correcting itself. If the price is too low, you get a shortage, right? Too many people wanting something, not enough to go around. That naturally pushes the price up.
And if the price is too high, you get a surplus, stuff just sitting on shelves, not selling. That forces sellers to push the price down. The market is always fighting its way back to that equilibrium. So you see, that equilibrium price isn't just some random number. It's the outcome of millions of individual choices. But there's an even deeper truth hidden inside every single one of those choices. A hidden cost that really governs everything we do. To really get this hidden cost, let's look at two investors, Person A and Person B. They both put 500 grand into a business, and they both expect a 30% return. Simple enough. The only difference? Person A uses their own cash, and Person B borrows the money, paying 13% interest of it.
Now, at first glance, you'd think Person A has it made, right? No debt, no interest payments. But let me ask you, who really made the better deal here? The answer lies in maybe the most important idea in all of economics: opportunity cost. It's the value of the next best thing you give up. It's the cost of the road you didn't take. See, Person A didn't pay any interest, that's true. But by putting their money in this business, they gave up the opportunity to do something else with it, like, say, lending it out safely and earning 13%. That lost potential earning, that's a very, very real cost. Let's break down the math to see the true picture. Both of these investors are actually facing the same 13% cost. For Person B, it's a real cash payment. For Person A, it's that invisible opportunity cost. So, to find the real return, we have to account for that. We start with that 30% they expect to make, but then we have to compare it to the 13% they could have made. When you run the numbers, you get a performance ratio of 1.15. And what does that mean? It means the real rate of return for both of them is exactly the same, 15%. The hidden cost was just as powerful as the actual cash payment.
So supply, demand, opportunity cost, this entire way of looking at the world is incredibly powerful. But you should know that it all depends on one little secret tool, a core assumption that makes the whole model work. And that tool is a Latin phrase, ceteris paribus. It just means all other things being equal. In order to really understand the relationship between, say, price and how much people buy, economists have to pretend to freeze everything else in the universe, your income, your tastes, the weather, everything. Now, of course, it's a simplification of the real world, but it's a crucial one that lets us isolate these incredibly powerful forces and see how they really work.
And this brings us right back to the beginning, to the big takeaway. From the price of a cup of coffee to the biggest life decisions you'll ever make, economics shows us that every single choice has a cost, and very often it's a hidden one. So, as you go about the rest of your day, just think about that for a second. What is today's choice really costing you?